Shannon should be joining us momentarily as well. And we are live.
Nice.
Okay, there we go.
All righty. Good to go.
I think so. We're good to go.
Excellent. Yeah, it shows we're on YouTube.
And Jane is just sneaking in here under the wire.
Hey, Jane. Good to see you.
She's almost in. There we go.
There she is.
Hey,
Hi.
Jane.
Awesome.
Hi.
Okay. Well, everybody, this is the 354th episode. It's crazy how quickly these go by. So, with that, we've got an exciting conversation for everybody tonight. Those of you who are on YouTube, you're in for a treat. We're glad you're here. And while you're on YouTube, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button, giving us some love, share your comments and things in the comments section as we're going out throughout tonight. We'd love to hear what you're getting out of the conversation, and we're happy to go back and answer any questions or anything like that. So if you're on YouTube, welcome, and we're glad you're here. Just a couple announcements really fast before we kick things off tonight. Just a reminder that Blair has those insider notes. This is an opportunity to go deep into the discussion that we do each Tuesday night here on the Blair Dunkley Experience. You get all the historical Blair Dunkley experiences back to 318. And as I mentioned, this is 354, so there's quite a library there. And this is an opportunity to get your hands on the notes from each night. A lot of things that we don't have the time to go very deep on while we're live, while we're having an experience here. So this is an opportunity to really kind of dive into the mind models and be able to go over them, over them and over them and over them again. So it's a great opportunity to learn the mind models in depth. And Blair has those available for $25 a month or $300 a year. And you can get those by going to www.blairdunkleydot com/BDE-insider-notes and get your hands on everything that we discuss here on the Blair Dunkley Experience. Another thing, just to mention really quick, Blair has the Mind Model Mastery Secrets podcast up on Podbean and your different podcast platforms. There's 4 episodes up right now, more to come soon, and you can find those. The easiest place to find those is mindmodelmastery.podbean.com, and you can check out some of the podcasts that he's got going on. And then also just to mention my model method coach training, which a lot of us here are certified as my model coaches. It's such an awesome opportunity to really dive deep into the mind models. He's got that training coming up September 16th through 19th. And then also September 16th through 19th, September 30th through October 3rd. And we have an amazing community here. It's a lot of fun to rewire your mind and to go deep into the mind models, even a lot deeper than we can go here on the Blair Dunkley Experience. If you're interested in going through that mind model coach training, changing, your life literally, you can reach out to Blair at rewiringthemind.com and let him know that just an email that you are interested in becoming a mind model coach. With that, as I mentioned, this is the 354th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience where we discuss mind models. We're so glad you're here. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. Your host for this evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of our mind models. And we are Tim and Becky Graff, your co-hosts and certified mind model coaches, along with the amazing Patty McClurg. And the BDE is Blair's gift to you. And it's an opportunity to learn, experience, and practice mind models in a safe, real-world environment. My models have helped Becky and I in every area of our lives, not only in the business that we've created, but personally resolving an 8-year issue in our marriage when we first got together. Those first few years were a little rough. We were able to solve an issue that we had within just a few hours of being part of that My Model coach. And it also helped us with the navigation and the grief and PTSD that came from a tragic accident that we had in 2020 where we lost both of our young daughters. My models have allowed Becky and I to become more effective and increase our capacities and our speed of recovery without traditional counseling. That is the power of these mind models. We look forward to the discussion tonight, to learning with you guys tonight. And as I mentioned, welcome everybody to the Blair Dunkley experience. We're here every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain and 9 Eastern. And with that, I will hand it over to my lovely wife.
All right, you guys. So last week was episode 353, and we were talking about self-other situation. If you missed it, please make sure that you go back and listen to it. It was a great conversation, but tonight, well, actually, before I go there, and so I'm curious, what came up for you guys as you walked away from last night's episode, self-other situation? What leftovers or ahas did you guys have that you would like to share with us? Sounds like a fairly unassuming mind model, but actually is a backbone for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Brent, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring that up, like the backbone, going looking at it, and what we spoke on it is the backbone of mind models and how we operate. We use using it every day, pretty much I think almost every moment of the day, essentially things are going on. It's something's involved. It's yourself, somebody else, and the situation. So it's always there. It's always an interaction between those. So yeah, that was one of the big ones, and starting to I was thinking about that today, and then trying to analyze what I was doing throughout the day and pinpoint each piece, like what
How does it
was
go for
what was
you?
working.
What did you notice in that process for yourself?
Um, I just noticed it was a lot, like how much intertwined it is throughout the day, all the situations. That's what was coming up. I was like, man, this is a lot, everything. So then trying to, it was a little difficult to pick on, spending more time to pick on and focus on which one and how well it worked. I got to the point of seeing like how the scope, like the large scope of how intertwined it is through our lives and every day. So yeah, that was.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I find for myself that sometimes I find my evaluation or my noticing going to one or the other circles first, depending on situations, which is a very interesting way in which we're going to play around with a little bit. But before we go there, anyone else have something? So thank you, Brent, for sharing. Shannon, is that a hand raised?
This was a fun observation for me because every time we talk about this mind model, I draw the Venn diagram in my notebook. And so when Tim brought up the order, the self situation, other situation, the different aspects of diving into the order, I thought it would be interesting to go back and look in my notebook and see if I write it out the same way each time, or if maybe at different points in my life, the circles were rearranged in different orders. And every time I wrote them down, they were different. And it was like sometimes two were on top and one were on bottom, sometimes situation, sometimes self was on the bottom. It was really interesting because even though I say it one way, it was like some part of my brain was like, taking something internal and bringing it external. So that was a fun part of the conversation for me because I hear different people discuss it differently. And to be able to use that as a little window into myself, at different points in my life when I've written that mind model down, where was I at with it? And a nice unconscious little litmus test. So that was fun.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing, Shannon. Appreciate that. Anyone else? Shane.
Oh, we're living in a situation. Definitely realized that, even my takeaways from last week were about we're always in a mind model. No matter what's going on in our life, we're always in a mind model. And then Wednesday, I had a horse fall with me full speed, and we went down in a blaze of glory, and I got a busted shoulder and other issues. But so situation does. My whole takeaway is that every situation always involves other, even when you think it's just you and that situation.
Yep.
Did you find, and so glad that you're here and upright. Sorry to hear about your accident. Did you notice anything specifically with self-other situation as you've navigated your incident that it either helped or illuminated or alleviated anything for you with just the distinctions?
But the distinction that others are always involved,
Mm.
you know, and how much my world truly revolves on others, especially right now. I mean,
Mhm.
it's taken a lot to, and it sounds like it's gonna be a pretty long road to recovery.
Please keep us
So,
posted on that, Shane.
others, yeah, we don't see the specialist until Thursday, and kind of even know what's going on. I have no motor function in that arm at all. There's no, I can't lift that left shoulder up at all.
Hmm.
Christy's a great nursemaid. She gets pretty grouchy when I try to be independent though.
Well, I mean, as a good nursemaid ought to when things need to be stationary.
Yeah.
Sending you lots of love and prayers for healing, Shane. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Prayer and lots of prayers for Christy dealing with my stubbornness.
Here's where I was going next. Christy, how's
I say, it sounds like
been for you, my dear?
sounds like some self-situation another is going to be a thing here for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I don't know if I think that was throwing me under the bus or what that was exactly, but yeah.
We're asking for support when he needs it,
Okay.
and you need it.
Oh, well, please keep us in the loop. And I was
Yeah,
just
please.
curious for you, Christy, as we were talking about self-other situation within your guys' newest event, did you find it helpful to have distinctions for things? Or what mind models did you rely on within self-other situation that have kind of helped?
I don't know how much I'm going to be able to visit without crying, to be honest. I have a whole bunch going on
Okay.
all over the place. But with self-other in situation, kind of being able to mirror it to the others that we need to step up in the situation. So how we play the role as ourselves and how to navigate that part has been something that's been a real big eye-opener on maybe, that we need to do some better, like here's the content, the process is now different. So we've got a whole line and level of where we need to go in communicating in that sense too. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing, Christy. And again, both of you, please don't hesitate to tap your community. We're here to support you as we can.
Yes. Thank you.
Like, please call, reach out. You know how to get a hold of me if you wish.
All right. Anyone else from last week's leftovers? I'm getting tongue-tied now.
It's I actually had an awareness this week with self-other situations, self-situation other, the order of the circles, how they interplay with each other. And I was actually going to share this a little later on in the discussion tonight, but now might be a great time. One of the awarenesses that I had and I don't know if Becky mentioned this or not, but we're actually going to take a little bit deeper dive tonight into the self-other situation that we were discussing last week. Blair actually has a cool little demonstration, and we're gonna pick his brain a little bit tonight as well and talk about the order and the flow of these different circles and how they interplay, and just how deep self-situation and other or self-other situation can really go. One awareness that I had this week, and an interesting thought that I had is I was thinking back to when I was in school. When I was in school, I was little. Okay. I had glasses. I was little compared to the rest of my classmates. And as you can imagine, I was little Timmy and I was picked on. Okay.
Shoved in lockers.
Yeah, shoved in
kinda
lockers. I
picked
was
on.
bullied quite a bit through school. Absolutely hated school just because I was constantly in the crossfire of, bullies. And so one of the things that I found when I was younger is my best friend was actually a big guy. He was a big, tall, he wasn't fat, but he was just stout, just this thick guy. And best friend in the world, and I relied on him, that codependency, so to speak. If he wasn't going to school, I wasn't going to school because he stood up for me. You know, I didn't get shoved into the locker, I didn't get beat up, I didn't get picked on if he was there. And so, one of the awarenesses that I had this week, looking at my historical, is I was very much, you know, when you talk about the circles, I was very much in, I was myself. I had my best friend who was the other, and then I had the situations, and I was using my best friend as that buffer, if you will, from the situation circle. They were in a straight line. It was self, other, and situation for me. And it was that way for many, many, many years, all through school, um, until eventually my best friend ended up dropping out of school, got into some trouble, and long story short, he wasn't there anymore. And then suddenly I found myself dealing with the situation alone. And so it speaks to, you know, some of the things that I've dealt with over my life. But I found it interesting that there is those situations, if you will, that you put the circles in a straight line, and one ends up being, so to speak, a buffer from other. Like to think that now, you know, I've got them pretty well overlapped and I've got that sweet spot going on, but it took me quite a bit. It took me going through my model coach and the awareness of how self situation and other plays. And it's interesting now, instead of self other situation, which I unconsciously was doing back then in that line, if you will, they now it's self situation other for me because I see myself and how I interplay with those situations. And then I look at the others involved. That's how I view it now. But it's interesting how that has progressed and shifted over those years. Um, and with that, do we want to bring up the slide, Blair? And
Absolutely. I've got it right ready to go.
So just to fill you guys in, tonight we're going to be talking about the flow. We're talking about the flow of self, other, and situation with internal and external, and how to recognize the voice or the language that goes along with the circle separation. So like Tim shared, there was moments in his life where he had his ordered a certain way. Okay. I can say for myself, there's been times in my life, it's like somebody just used a deck of cards and they like went and they just went wherever they went. And I had to figure out, okay, where am I at with this? And so Blair, go ahead and share your screen. He's going to talk about some really cool stuff. This was very powerful when we were prepping for this one on just how deep self, other, and situation can be and how we can actually harness it for clarity in our lives.
Are you seeing this
Yes.
graphic
yes,
here?
yep,
So, one of the versions that you were talking about there, Tim,
yep,
self-other situation, you were using your friend to buffer you.
yep.
And then some people do it the other way around and use the situation to buffer from others. Now, nothing is right or wrong here, but it is effective or ineffective. Now, one of the things that I like to do here is order it more or less like this as best I can to balance things out, to attempt to get the sweet spot here, which is in the middle. This area, whoopsie, this area right in here is the sweet spot. And if you can get that sweet spot all combined and see it there, you now control yourself because you're the only person that you can control. But your influence is very palpable with others and it impacts the situation. So you can influence both the situation and others in very meaningful ways. So a lot of times this becomes issues, but sometimes the situation overflows, is bigger than the uh, the situation and others. So it becomes, where you can't really have a sweet spot that actually is meaningful in the situation. You can try and get something, but it doesn't really take. You're influencing like crazy, and it just doesn't take. Now, when I was doing a bunch of prep for today and putting together the notes, the insider notes, one of the things that I started doing was taking a look at the impact of relive versus remember, and relive in particular on the emotional patterns and its interaction with self-other situation. So one of the things that when we understand relive and its impact as a pattern, it starts reliving is described as a stuck state in the work that I do. When you relive and relive and relive, you're just going over the same thing. Because it's 100% past, you can't move into the present. But that means that this situation starts taking over your perspective of your life and starts consuming yourself. And the byproducts of that frequently is depression. Okay, so we can also take a look at fear and anxiety and how future events appearing real fit into this. And when, the future events appearing real and it's past, we can now project others as being a key part of our situation, and we start becoming the victim, and we get swallowed up by how we perceive ourselves as being. So this has major implications in trauma retention, like PTSD, and other issues here, self-other situation. If you don't have a balance and you can't find yourself in here and grow yourself, the situation can sort of just dominate. And it can actually become pretty significant. Even if others are significant, it can even in your own mind more or less overwhelm others as well. In other words, again, you can't do much of anything. Now, the other thing here is what happens if we put, I'm just going to shrink these guys down a bit, back here, and others are here, and do this, and self is over here. But what happens if self is here and we just start getting a bigger and bigger self so that we dominate others and impose our will into a situation, but we really don't care about the situation? Well, that's not a victim model. It's the antithesis of that. Anybody got a clue as to what kind of model that might be? Where's this person's self?
Totally
As a big
absorbed.
ego?
Big ego, yeah. Jackie, you were going to say?
Totally absorbed in himself.
Absolutely a narcissist.
Yeah, narcissism was where I was going with
I was
that.
going to say abusive.
Frequently. So it becomes a pretty significant destructive thing where others don't really matter that much. So the self-other situation thing is pretty messed up. And again, this is something that I needed to figure out so that I could determine rapid evaluation and figure out a balanced approach. And how do we get this back to a sweet spot that actually gives us, whoopsie, there we go, a balanced approach to self-other situation.
So this is where I ask my where when I notice I'm off, or I notice the situation is it's like, where am I? This
Yeah.
is, yeah, in any, because you can do it. The new relationship was how Tim explained that it was put one in front of the other, which I'd never observed myself doing before. But now I look back, I can definitely see where I have placed a situation in order not to have connection with the other person, type of thing. Where you put it
Correct.
in a row, sorry, like Tim was describing.
Right. So you can put that here and have a lot of self and here, and you can actually move that out there
Hmm.
so that it literally, you can ignore the other person fairly easily.
Yeah.
So there's very little interaction. Okay.
Yeah, and that situation could be actually physical distance, like changing location or whatever. Yeah. I
Yeah.
can see different times in my life where I've definitely made choices based on an uncomfortable situation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can have comfortable situations that buffer you, and sometimes you get the situation that you pull out of both the situation and others.
Yeah.
So I definitely know that with my recovery from my hip replacement, that myself, I have to watch that I don't sort of do this where I disconnect and just go into myself. So that's something that I really want to avoid doing. And so I pay a lot of attention to that.
Isolation.
Correct. And that was very common. Are you guys there still?
We are.
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. Because I lost you on my, there we go, got you back.
So in this self situation other, um, you know, we've talked a lot about growing as humans and trying to be the best version of yourself, etc. And that old saying of, show me your five best friends and I'll show you who you will become. So with this self-other situation, I've noticed that, in our trying to grow who Christy and I are as people, that I don't want to say we've left others in the past, but we've removed ourselves from others in situations just because they don't align with our thoughts, values, and morals, even, let's say that. So, I mean, obviously, I'm looking at your graph there, Blair, and I'm thinking that we are self and secluded away from others and their specific situations. But in that version of who Christy and I are trying to become, we actually it's an effective part of removing yourself from others in the situation.
Absolutely. Sometimes you do need to do this because others in situation are not effective for you. So that this becomes you want to shrink down the influence of others and focus on self and situation with a little bit of overlap. And
Right.
as you find others in your life that are more of a fit, I mean, that's where this starts creating a new situation that overlaps.
Yeah, and some of those others are, unhealthy relationships with family.
Yes.
And it's just like set the boundaries and we're like, yeah, we don't have time to go through all that, but
Yeah, exactly. So there is a lot. Basically, what I wound up doing was putting together a bonus section in the um, Blair Dunkley Experience Insider, the BDE Insider Notes here, and it's about 4 or 5 pages long well, 3 pages, sorry, I lied. And it's all these patterns that exist and the interplay between them. And, stuck states, emotional inflammation. How do we reduce our emotional inflammation that we have? So, I mean, fear and anxiety, another big one. Like I already touched on, trauma retention and disconnected circles. And sometimes we need to do our disconnecting of circles intentionally, and sometimes we have to reconnect them intentionally. And so it depends on what crises we're dealing with within ourselves, within our family, within our lives at the moment. So it gives a whole lot of difference in buffering and language pattern. Getting to now the three E's, all of this stuff is huge. And acceptance versus self-acceptance is another one in here. So, I mean, it goes on and on. So I'm going to stop rambling on here
Thank
about
you.
this because it is in the insider notes.
Yeah. Will you leave this up for just a second, Blair, before you
Sure.
share? So curious, guys. Thank you, Blair, for the beautiful model, because I think we're all, can probably agree that the visuals are super helpful to see, because in our own world, we just do. And so I'm curious, what are you guys noticing based on our conversation about your own circles? Where do you typically find, what does your configuration look like? What if you had like a general thing? I only see tiny squares, so
You're going to have to pick on people.
yep, I know. Tim's cycling through.
Okay.
Jane, do you mind sharing what your thoughts are on this?
No, I don't mind. I think part of what we've seen as a family is that we can, when we were talking about relive and remember is, depending on and I'm going to call the situation would be the life, uh, um, phase of where our children were and what, and that self-other situation, it changed. And trying to explain to my sister at one point when her daughter had put her on a no contact list when she was going to a particular event or whatever, and she was all upset. My sister was all upset, and I tried to explain to her. I says, well, think of it this way. She is no longer a child. And if you've never stepped up and treated her as an adult now that she's in her 30s, there's going to be a situation where she is not going to want her mother being involved.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "Yo, but she's always my baby." I says, that may be true. However, the situation has changed. She is no longer a child. Therefore, treating her as such is not appropriate. And when you treat her as an adult, then she's going to respond differently. It's a behavior thing. If you're going to behave as an overbearing mother to a 33-year-old child, then the child is going to say, you know what? I'm an adult. This is not what I want in my life. And they're going to change the parameters and they're going to exclude you. Yeah. So that was a tough bullet to bite. And she goes, well, how have you been with your children? And I says, well, basically from the time they were small, I've always treated them as a person first. Then depending on the situation would depend on whether I was going to parent or whether I was going to instruct or whatever, because they're people. Even when they're small, they're still people. Mm-hmm. And that was a really difficult concept for her to grasp onto, but eventually she did. And her whole world changed. Mm-hmm. At least that relationship with her daughter. And it was definitely for the better. And they always had a good relationship. It's just this one particular situation changed the dynamics that needed to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's a great illustration of the daughter pulling herself, right, and rotating maybe over or around from other in situation as she wanted more freedom moving out of the home.
Well, it's not so much freedom as just that she was in a situation that she didn't need an overbearing mother texting her 5 times a day saying da 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 da. It's like, you know.
Sure. Yeah, so this
So-
is a very fluid process. Thank you for sharing, Jane.
Welcome.
Mike, what are you pulling from this tonight?
To be honest, I'm a little lost and a little confused.
About what? What are you feeling lost and confused about?
Just the whole concept of everything. I feel like I got to go back and watch last week's to sort of grasp where you guys are at today.
Okay. So even being lost and confused, is there anything that's standing out to you as far as like how this might apply to you?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure that out at the moment. So,
May I fill you in slightly?
yes, please.
So, which circle are you focused on right at this second? Self, other, or situation?
Self.
Correct. And what are you confused about? Self,
sit-
other, or situation?
Situation.
Perfect. And who are you requesting clarity from?
Other.
Perfect. That's it. Don't overcomplicate.
All right.
It's that simple, but it's that powerful because it's so simple.
So-
Okay. And that way, like, I know that you're into acting and whatnot. So you've got to get the character of self, whatever your character is that you're playing in a given situation and react to others. So you're playing off the situation and others all the time as that character, that self that you're portraying is there. And the more you become actively being that self character, the better you act because it becomes just more true. But actors are always going between self-other situation constantly. And that's the fluid dynamics that when you see that whole thing happening, and you can then apply the same type of methodology to family dynamics, or to relationship dynamics, or to business dynamics. It is always there in every possible aspect of your life until you're dead, because you cannot have self without others and situation. Okay, you cannot have a situation without others and self. You can't have others without self and situation. They're always inexplicably bound, but how that relationship is can be all over the map. And that's basically it. And it's just to say, oh, what would happen if I'm aware of and look for a self-other situation in this situation? And all of a sudden, poof, there it is. And when you see it, it gives you information. And that information that it usually gives is, can I, like Jackie uses, or Jacqueline uses, where am I? Or where is this situation? Or where are they at? The where question to determine the location of everything. And that's huge.
You know what, Blair? I was just actually getting curious about what other people use, not when they actually find themselves like, oh, here I have a self-othering situation, like they're aware. Like it's my feelings that trigger me to recognize, oh, what's going on around me, and this is where I use where am I at, what's going on, and what influences are here.
Perfect.
I wonder what other people, because other people are noticing all of these patterns, and it's fantastic. And I wonder how they recognize they need to use that mind model. Like, is it a notice aware notice type of pattern they use to get there? Is it a feeling or a thought? I'm just curious because I'm always looking for ways to be more use other parts of myself other than my feelings?
Great question, Jacqueline. Is anybody, Jane?
So this is going to sound kind of weird, but I was thinking about a situation in which, an overbearing person, doing more than influence, controlling another person. And at what point does that person decide, you know what, no more, I've had enough? And then I went, ta-da, let's see. If you look at it in terms of history, we look at the United States, we weren't the United States, we were the colonies, and technically we were a penal colony in which England was the overlord, and the colonists finally said no more, and that's where the revolution started happening. And then you look at one point, England was this huge powerhouse over basically almost the entire world, and yet Australia, they were a penal colony. Now they're their own country and their own continent. New Zealand was penal colony. Even India, at some point, yes, the England gave them gave them the opportunity to be their own sovereign, and that's when it split with Pakistan. All that. It was still the same situation. It was just a different. And this came into my mind when we were talking to is it Michael?
Yes.
In that the situation was the same. It's just a different set of players, a different set of actors, or whatever you want to be. Russia went through the same thing, and we know the whole thing about when the Russian Revolution went through, and we see this through history, and it can happen on a personal scale as well as a big scale and a global scale. It's the same situation, but we can do that with any reflective or evaluation situation, whether it's parent, child, school, husband, wife, home buying. Yeah. Everything has a self-other situation, even when you are but alone. So I thought of that movie with Tom Hanks when he was on the island and he was lonely. And he had the volleyball who, it said Wilson, so he named it Wilson, so he would have another other. And yet he was still thinking of his fiance the whole time, thinking that, and his whole thing was, when I get to see her again and all that. And of course, the situation changed completely when he was finally rescued and she'd been married and she had, kids. It all changes. And so that fluidity, that flow, being understanding self-other situation.
And
where do you fit?
And it's interesting as you're sharing that, Jane, back to Jacqueline's question, like, what is it that we use to identify where we are or the configuration in our world?
And we can do that even with, as Blair was talking about, remembering and reliving, where am I? Whether Jacqueline's talking about where am I physically? Am I in my office? Am I in my living room? Or where am I mentally? Am I in the past? Am I in the present? Am I in the future? And how do I get to the present so that I can influence what's going to happen next? Because I can't influence the past. The past is done. I think I can influence the future, but I can't really do it in the future. I can only start the ball rolling now. So getting to now is important. So when Jacqueline says, where am I? It encompasses everything.
Yeah.
No, it's got, what are the 6 one? Oh, I'm not sure if we can talk about them here, because that's the where. There are 6 parts to the where. I keep forgetting them. I remember them when I need them, and I go, oh yeah, that's one of them.
Awesome. Thank you, Jacqueline. Shannon, did you
Yeah, I had a thought on what Jacqueline was talking about in terms of what causes someone to reach for that mind model. And for me, one of the doorways to reaching for that mental picture of self-other situation is a gap. And sometimes an emotion is an indication of a gap, like there's a little wrinkle of something I need to figure out, but not always. Sometimes it is just my noticing that something needs more clarity, and it's a tool that I use to help evaluate something. Because the way, especially the way we talked about it tonight, and Blair, that was super effective with the different colors and changing the sizes and moving them around. That was so cool and fun. And that, like, even when I was discussing a book series with a friend of mine, same author wrote two different series. The first one, wildly popular and loved. The second one, not as well received. And so we were talking about, what we thought was the reason behind that. And I used self other situation in my description of that to her. I said, but without, the great details, but I said that the first series was driven by self, the character specifically, and everything else followed. The second series was driven by situation, and it's not as personal. You don't feel that connection behind their eyes as they go on this journey, and it's just heavy, heavy situation, 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 and you don't feel anything from the self or the other. You don't really even care about the main character. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're right. Because I was like describing it and I was like, that's just how I look at it. And the first one, it was so personal and you could get behind the eyes and you could feel things for yourself as this person's going on this journey. So it's a really and it's these conversations are making me think of using it more and what other doorways there would be to pulling that out of my toolbox more often. But for me, it's a clarity tool. And it's just, I'm curious if something could make more sense, or my desire to understand something or have more clarity, or, evaluate something that is missing that I would like to fill in. So those are some of the ways that I use that.
Patty?
You know what interesting about what you say, Shannon, is then when you are where you are, how to navigate to either detach a little bit from the others or the situation, or attach, like trying to reach to navigate, to maneuver the circles to get the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patty, did you have something to share?
Yeah. For me, one of the ways that I recognize where I am in this is my language. I listen to the words that I use, especially my pronouns. When I start using plural pronouns for things that really are personal, I've lost myself. My somehow other has covered up self. And I need to pull those apart. And so my use of pronouns are the things that I listen to in my own language, and realize that I need to own myself. I need to let other be other. And, when raising children, it's very easy to use plural pronouns for children. And then they grow up and they want to be their own self. Not that they ever were not their own self, but there's this sublimating self to other, and my pronouns making me a part of somebody that I need to stay individuated. I need to stay myself, and I need to let them stay in their other. And so those are generally the flags, is my own language. I listen to the words that I use. And then the mind model that I was thinking of with this for me is updating. I need to stay updated to what's going on and to how everybody is going, what is relevant and what isn't. My thoughts and opinions are largely irrelevant to an other unless they ask for them. And it's kind of like, okay, this is where self stops and this is where other takes over, and accepting that. But updating has been really key for me, along with listening to my own pronoun use. So just wanted to add that to Jacqueline's question, because I think it's a great question, Jacqueline.
You know what? I really appreciate your answer, because I've never thought about to listen. Maybe I do sometimes, and then I feel off. I don't know, but maybe there's another step beforehand, or I might add a step, but it gives you something to look for. Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Patty. That's a key. It's a huge thing. I don't think that we often listen to ourselves, either what we're verbally saying or the narrative that we're saying in our heads, or the feelings that we were experiencing that can really help us diagnose where are our circles at, or where are we within our circles. I know there's been many
Well,
times.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add what you were saying with listening to ourselves talk, and the other is another piece of language that goes with the pronouns is not just when I'm using plural pronouns for myself, but when somehow my pronouns make it kind of a me against them and us them situation.
Yeah.
So that there's a polarization, I'm losing the overlap based on how I'm me versus them, or me versus somebody else, instead of realizing that we're still interconnected. We need to stay interconnected, and avoiding the language patterns that go into a oppositional kind of a situation. That was another thing that I listened for.
The other one, Mom, I've noticed just recently specifically is when someone answers for another person. So if a question is directed at someone and then a third party jumps in and says, we are like this and this and this. I'm like, well, actually, I was talking to that person.
Yeah.
Patty,
Yeah.
could you give me an example of a plural pronoun that you do that? I'm having a tough time pulling that up in my head.
Are you? Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to be able to give you specific language to a specific situation. It happens in caregiving a lot, when it's like, we're going to do,
It's the royal we.
let's take, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to do this, and let's, do this. And, that's the easiest example that I can.
Yeah, and it's more or
of.
less what Shannon just role modeled as well, gave us as well, as
Yeah.
somebody answering for somebody else and
Yes.
making it inclusive.
Can
But
I get a different type of answer, but it's the same thing? My
sure,
husband used to always say, we need to seal the driveway. Well, that was really his way of saying, this needs to be done and I want you to do it.
right.
And when I finally started asking the question, we me, we you, or we both of us?
And Becky's chuckling because we do with the same thing a lot. It's we need to do this, and actually it's me that needs to do it, or she needs. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's the we.
And then, but as soon as you clarify, is that we me, we you, or we both of us? It clarifies the situation as to what role are we actually going to play in this self-other situation.
Yeah,
As in-
pronouns are really big deal.
As
Okay.
in our current
Okay.
situation, as in we, when I'm talking to Christy, need to go to the bathroom. 'Cause I can't do that without her. We need to go to the bathroom.
Well, funny enough, I'm getting into a new relationship, and we've been going on dates and stuff. And I am curious to find how often he uses the word we, because it's in there, and you know what I mean. So that's very interesting.
Yep.
Leslie, you've been very thoughtful, and I've seen your head down a lot. What's coming up for you?
Well, I'm just finding this very interesting. Again, this these circles are powerful, and what kept coming to mind and trying to understand is going back again a week ago when we had all these young cubs from out of province stuck on the side of the highway. And I'm sort of envisioning these circles of situation and other. And I don't know if they're on top of each other or just half over each other, but they're huge. And the self circle is disassociated and way over here because in that situation, and I think I said this last week too, I just got into a do loop of got to do this, got to do that, got to get those kids off the highway. This is not a safe situation. And lo and behold, it was not nice to my kids that were also wanting to help and could have helped. But the one thing that they did do was like, yeah, we got them off the highway. We got the vehicle secured and brought the tire back in that had blown apart. And we had a plan. So that part was good. But now we had the repaired tire and it was to go back out. And two of our kids were just saying, you can't do this. You know, you're not 30 years old anymore, Dad. You know, you need help. And the situation that, or what they came up with was, yeah, call AMA, the Motor Association, and have them meet you there and let them put the tire on. And sure enough, the first guy that shows up is setting up cones and has the flashing lights and stops all the traffic. And next guy comes along and actually fixes the tire. And 20 minutes later, we're down the road safely. Nobody injured. Backed up traffic, all the tractor trailers and everything, backed up a mile. You can see it on Google Earth, you know, the red line. And that's us. But yeah, so I'm just recalling this situation so much and how that circle, the three perfectly balanced circles, were just so out of alignment. And now, yeah, I wasn't thinking of mind models at that time. I wasn't thinking the three E's. I wasn't thinking of anything but do. And so in some of the conversation tonight of listening to your own language, stopping and updating what the heck is going on, noticing a gap. You know, these are the things that have been said tonight have just been very key and are settling well.
Awesome.
So that's where I'm at.
Thank you for sharing. And I think that that's really powerful with, especially Blair, your demonstration tonight, is we can start to see the patterning, right? We have a model to like visually see how we might be stacking, separating, lining up, overlapping within our world.
Absolutely. And you know, the perfect pattern is rarely, almost if ever, but occasionally it comes together. But it's usually not all three, like the Venn diagram is there. That's not how it is. It's messy. It's constantly moving, you know, and it's to figure out, it's to give you guys an idea of how to create a snapshot in your own mind of self-other situation. That's the critical piece.
Brent, can I check in with you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Blair was just stated. I was just thinking about that as Leslie was going on and Jane and Patty. I'm like, man, this is, and for like you asked that question, you know, how do we see, you know, I wrote down like, how do I see like for myself the circles, like how's it goes? I'm like, well, I can't pinpoint exactly. It always seems to be moving depending on what's going on, what's happening, or you know, the people involved, the situation of those, and then so that all those factors determine how it's going. So I was just like, well, it seems to be that it moves a lot. And then, but working towards, but seeing, like noticing those things and how it's working, being able to get yourself to that, trying to get to that situation where it fits and you're in that sweet spot, trying to move to there so everything's fluid. So, but that comes to, the evaluation, the three E's, and then using them and the an ANPU, so you're aware of these things and see how they're going, your feelings, and like Patty, the way she was speaking, how that affects her, where she's at, and she's able to see how that works and then make an adjustment. So that's all how that interplays, and then that just goes. And then I was tying it back to like, oh, it's like, still like the backbone of the mind models, because it's the, using everything else to line those up and the situation. So that's all involved. I was like, man, this is definitely a thinker for me. So I was trying to put it all together and see how it was going. So that was one thing I was like, yeah, it's just not like, I know the snapshot, you try to get to that piece, but it seems to be moving all the time. All these little situations, going from one situation right to the next, could be same people or the same situation. Others come in, so it's changing. There's other things coming in that alter that dynamic. So yeah,
It's like
I was getting at.
one of the things that came up for me as we're talking about like the identification part of it is naming and labeling, right? Being able to name and label and be able to identify with names and labels, and also describing the feelings where we're at. So it goes back to Jacqueline. For me, it's naming and labeling and describing feelings to figure out where I'm at. So in any given situation, it's a combination of either what's going on or how do I feel and what do I know about that, to be able to figure out where I am. And then also to be able to focus, remove, retool, resituate, whatever I need to, so that I can manage what I need to in that moment. So like when a trigger hits, it's like big old tidal wave, whoosh, right? My brain is doing what it's going to do. I've got to check in and name and label and describe my feelings to be able to tease out, to be able to have a functional process within situation or others. So it's such a powerful mind model to be able to utilize all the others, as you were saying, Brent, inside of, to get utility. And really, I almost envision like holding three marbles in my hand and you're doing this. And that's kind of how it's all interplaying in our world, because they're like hitting off of each other. Sometimes you can shake them up, you can listen to them, right? Sometimes I would throw them across the room and be like, I don't even want to deal with anything. Let's see where it lands. And then, all right, let's go assess. Because it is not static. I don't know that it's even possible to be static, Blair. Would you say that there's constant motion in all of it?
Absolutely, because there's constant motion in life. It's from moment to moment. And now the three circles are just for one person, because it's just one person's perspective of what is life for them. Because as we have seen, life cannot exist without others, your parents. You needed to be born. They needed to come together in a situation for you to be born. It's just that simple, when you break it down like that. So self-other situation, but for every person, like in here, there's what, 11 people here, 12 people here. It's like we could simply put three circles for each person here, and the overlap and interplay of how these are all moving, and it becomes a cluster, you know what, very fast.
Or a beautiful concert, Blair.
Yes, but if you wind up just letting yourself focus on your three circles and get clarity on your three circles, and then you can look at somebody else's three circles, gosh, the clarity that you can get from that is huge. It helps you name and label and remove so much excess clutter, because there's so much that is extraneous, just extra to the situation, and just get it down to a simple self-other situation for yourself, and then find out where somebody else is and their self-other situation. That's it.
Yep. And there's the power of choice through all of this. As we
Well-
describe, name and label, we get to choose to what level and with whom we engage, which
And
is
curiosity.
and curiosity.
And then it's self-acceptance
Mhm.
and IBER, and then fair and balanced self-evaluation. It goes on and on. There's quite a list that it becomes like, I even wrote a piece saying this becomes like an echo chamber because it sort of reverberates around. And I go, this is critical, and all the smushing, the ineffective overlap and disconnect in some cases. So the disconnection, lack of overlap, and too much overlap, which is smooshing. Anyway, I'll stop.
Thank you, Blair. You guys, it's been an incredible evening. Are there any last comments before we move into wrap up? No?
I'm curious on whether Mike has got a better understanding, or is it a little clearer to him on what we've been talking about tonight on self-other situation. Mike?
Yeah, it's starting to come a little clearer for me now. Definitely helped when Blair was talking about the whole perspective of an actor, sort of helped ground it for me.
Okay.
Hey. Yeah, you guys, go back and watch last week's and this one again. I think that there was so much that was shared that can definitely go a little bit deeper on for ourselves. I know that's one that I'm going to come back and listen to because it was really, really rich. So Patty, with that, I will transfer it to you.
Okay, sounds good. Well, we're getting ready for wrap up. Let's see. Shane, would you like to start us off? Participate in wrap up?
Oh, for sure. I love going first because I get to put the big number 10 on it. The fact that the whole night last week and tonight, with what we're dealing with the accident, that we're always in a self situation other or self other situation, however you want to name and label that. And I wrote early on how many self situation others are in my daily life, and just like Blair just talked about, how many other circles are going. Like if you think of Blair's white page at the beginning, and there's our 3 circles, and there's this going on and this going on, so you could have a lot of those going on in your life, and naming and labeling them and really getting down to focus. And with Jacqueline, and staying in the present, where am I at now? Where am I at right now? And how do I stay right here? Was a good one. And when we talked about updating and staying out of the relive, the son-in-laws, after the accident, they've got lots of stuck questions. What now? Why now? Why'd this happen? Honestly, I mean, I did not stay stuck at all. I didn't have a pity party. Why me? We've got a crazy hectic schedule right now. We got a big jobs ahead of us to do on the ranch, but I'm not stuck there. It happened. Can't change it. So now what's the most effective way moving forward?
Yeah.
And it's been a little bit of a struggle. I'm not gonna lie, to get the son-in-laws, out of that stuck loop, and the pouting. What? I really wish you were in the hayfield. Well, at this point I can't be. So what's the most effective, et cetera, et cetera. So, and as always, Becky just touched on there, the power of choice. That's one of my favorite mind models. You get to choose. We can have however many, Colin's not in here, but how many words there are to label your feelings. Well, there's lots of them. And we get to choose those feelings. We get to choose those emotions, but we actually get to choose what comes out of our mouth. And that's highly effective. So thank you very much. I say 10.
You are welcome, Shane. That's really powerful. As you work through this, we're really looking forward to seeing how you navigate and how we can support you in your recovery. So really appreciate your sharing. Mike, what we're doing is giving one takeaway, and the number from 1 to 10 has to do with the value that you took out of it tonight. So would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
Yeah, I'd give it an 8, and just becoming aware of how the whole self, other, and situation all interact, and what's going on with me in my life right now, and how I'm reacting to both self, other, and situation.
Excellent. We're really glad to have you back. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, it's nice to be back.
So, Leslie, would you like to give us a wrap up tonight?
Certainly. Thank you. Tonight brought more clarity. I'm giving tonight a 10 because I've learned a lot. Was able to put a lot into focus or gel some things together that have been going on. And the we me or the we you, that fits in perfectly with a lot of things that go on around our home.
Yeah.
And
easy to do.
I really like that. I have to be more careful in using we from now on. But thank you for everybody's input. It was really good. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Leslie, when you were saying the we, I thought it was somebody else, but then you admitted it was the you were doing the we. That's so funny. Good for you.
Jacqueline, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
I can try. I'm getting intermittent internet here. Anyway, I'll be quickly. So I'll give it a 10 tonight. I had so much fun. I've just been giggling and laughing, like not at people's faults or whatever, but realization of their faults or something. It's just so cute when people do that, you know, and they're doing it with a great spirit. That it's not, they're doing it from an evaluation and not a judgmental place. And it's lovely to see people being easy on themselves, you know, like it's great.
Yeah.
So tonight, my takeaway is that I'm going to keep focusing on finding sweet spots, because, you know, the one thing that I realized tonight is when I have a sweet spot, I feel safer, you know, and then that allows me to maybe feel safer when there are more, let's call them circles around me, because I don't really like larger groups of people. And maybe if it would be interesting to think about where am I, or how big are the other selves, other in situations when I'm going into a group setting, and try to work through balance, focusing on that rather than the focusing on that and reducing the anxiety and stuff like that. Yeah,
That'll be interesting.
yeah.
I'm curious for your insights when you play around with that a little bit and see how that works for you.
Because I was actually thinking when Blair mentioned, I think it was last week or whatever, about some guy who's like isolated himself. Well, I remember being there. So this is like another step of me not doing that. And actually, I was even thinking today I should get a calendar. I'm not good with the phone ones. I want to get a calendar and start writing things down.
I'm still hard copy with a calendar. It works great for me. So
I can. I like writing things down for some reason and crossing them off.
yes. Yes.
Anyway,
I hear you with that.
everybody for answering my question. It helped so much. It opened up my mind to more little doorways to get me to realize or recognize, oh, self-other situation. And then once you're there, you know exactly what to do, right? So it's
does give clarity. I don't know that it necessarily gives us options, but it gives us clarity.
Failing fast, falling forward, Patty.
Totally,
Patty,
totally.
Patty.
Absolutely.
You know, we can do all of that in there. Those
That's
circles.
true. You certainly can. We have enough mind models to play in the circles. So
we do.
But your question was really effective. I think it helped us all think. So thank you for that.
It strictly came from curiosity. Honestly, I was so interested to figure out how everybody else was like jumping in to the circle, because I'd like to know more ways to jump into the circle, you know, get there a little quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jackie or Jacqueline. Let's see. Jane, I asked for yours already, didn't I, or no?
No, Shane.
I
You
didn't. Okay, the squares keep moving on the screen for me, and I'm trying really hard to keep track. So, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
Sure. Tonight was really amazing. I picked up on some really new things, and I know that Leslie mentioned last week the whole do loop, but it took a week and then him repeating it before I understood what he was saying in terms of where he was in his behavior, and I put myself then into his situation, and would I have gone to that same place? So self-other situation, I put myself in his place and said, would I have responded the same? Well, I'm a fixer, and my kids have identified that, Mom, I don't need you to fix this right now. Just need you to listen. You know, and it's like, oh, okay, this is cool. So that whole self-other situation, it applies everywhere, every time, anytime. And you know, it the whole naming and labeling, I love it when Becky brings up naming and labeling, because it's the one thing that I'm personally working on, and being able to do the naming and labeling of not just how I'm feeling, but you know, the situation. What is the situation? And that's where the where am I thing that Jacqueline says. So anyway, yeah, it was I'm gonna go full 9.5 tonight. Thank you.
You are welcome, and thanks for your sharing. Christy, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
Yes, most definite. Thank you. I'm giving 9.9 because 9's my favorite number. I could give it 10, but 9.9 is what I'm doing. The diagram was fabulous, and watching the different sizes, orders, all of the things. It is a big reminder for me, just the balance that the self-other situation is, how important that is. And then had one of those light bulb things, whatever. And then Blair reiterated when he had said, you know where your self-other situation is, and then how it works for everybody else. So I wrote quite a bit about just knowing where I am, making sure my circles are balanced, and then being able to have effective and kind of see, like, I can vision possibly where some other people's self-other situation circles are and their sizes, and then be able to know the questions, and maybe not know, but have a good idea on the direction of the questions to ask to help them balance their circles. So that was a really big, just the diagram, like I said, was really like put in perspective for me. And then when Blair said that, being able to not only do yours but everybody else's too, that was like, well, duh, you know. So anyway, I think that will be very helpful moving forward with a lot of our situations that we have, to be able to make sure we are where we are, then be able to help. We all know our content, but the processes are all everywhere. So knowing where everybody is, and the end goal with the self-other situation is a huge start, like foundation, I think will be really amazing. So thank you. Really, really enjoyed this evening.
Thank you, Christy. Let's see. Brent, would you like to participate in wrap up?
Yes, like to. I'd say tonight 9.25 for me. That would be. I really enjoyed the visual, and that's what kicked off some of the movement of the me thinking, like, getting them together in different, throughout the, everything you're experiencing, it's always moving, and using it as like a reference where you're the perfect squares, and then you can use that and evaluate like where exactly am I, if you're visual like to see those, you can pinpoint where you're at and see if you're separated or what's separated, where you're overlapping, and how that's working. So that was very interesting. And I was like, I think I just got it from just the like saying it how it is truly like the backbone, self situation and other. There doesn't nothing else exists without that. Like
Yeah.
there's always those three in play.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Sharing that in the beginning
yeah.
was really helpful. That observation. So well done.
Hmm.
Let's see, Shannon, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This was a 10 out of 10. The visual aid, the questions, Becky, that you asked in between and that Jacqueline asked, like it was really, really, it brought something to life in a new way for me. And the idea, something that I was just thinking about for like applying it to myself specifically, was to notice, does the size of my self circle change drastically from one situation to another? Like I know things are going to move around a little bit and nothing is totally static, but just to notice, like, am I taking myself with me where I go to different contexts, like at work or with the different situations in my life? And then it takes me to something that Brent said, like moving from one situation to the next, and how fast can I pivot and how fast can I update? Because at work, I have different clients every 50 minutes. And so you have to update and pivot very quickly. And I notice there's a certain number of hours in a row I can do that. And then it starts to get tired. And the idea of trying to be consistent with myself throughout it all. The other thing that I started to notice at the end, just as I was thinking about my surgery and everything that's on my plate, was the overlay of the risk, trust, honesty triangle. So I hope that one's coming in the future.
It's actually next week.
Oh,
So just
yay.
a sneak peek. Yes,
There
we're
we
doing this
go.
trust honesty next week. So
Because I have like very high level of trust in myself. And we've gone through the process with the situation. So I have an element of peace with the
Mhm.
process, but it's the other. You have no control over the other. So how do you bump the trust up high enough to match the risk? So I was kind of playing with that in my head while I was listening to where the different circles move around and how that on the board, really millions of things written down, so many things to noodle on, great use of visual aid. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, would you like to participate in wrap up tonight?
I would love to, Patty. Thank you. Yeah, tonight's a 10 for me. Not only because I love this mind model. Self-situation other is my favorite. And, Brent, you mentioned the backbone. It's by far the backbone. It's the core mind model for me because, again, everything that we do in life, we're in a situation. There are others involved. And it's really about that awareness.
Yes.
That awareness piece of just, I can control myself, I can influence others, I can influence the situation, and the awareness of that and the control within those three circles, it makes going through those situations and working with others so much simpler, just having that simple awareness. And then, the visual tonight of moving those circles around and how they interplay was amazing because it just takes it to whole new levels of depth. And then you start thinking about your three circles and how you interplay with those and mixing it with everybody else. It's like this mind model really just, it's like Becky mentioned, with those the constant circles just moving around with, like you have those three balls in your hand that are just constantly spinning and just the interplay and the awareness of that. Not only, I mentioned my story earlier in the night of, buffering the situations that I found myself in with my friend. I can say that since learning this mind model, I have been able to balance those three circles for myself, really listen, as Blair mentioned earlier, you listen to yourself. How are you talking to yourself? And I hear, so many of us out there in the world, there are so many situations going on in our crazy world right now. There's natural disasters, there's wars, there is so much going on. And the thing that hurts my heart is I hear so many people give away, they they give away their power of self to the situation, to the others. This is going on and it's others' fault, or this is going on and it's the situation. And they really don't understand that their control and what they can do within that. And they give away their power to the other in the situation. And it really it hurts to hear people really give away their power. And that is just, this mind model is so amazing. And yeah, I mean, so many thoughts going on in my head, but I love this conversation, and tonight was a 10 for me. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Becky, would you like to participate in wrap up?
Yes. 9.999999999, just because I don't want to do a 10. I can echo a lot of what's been shared. Self-other situation is my compass in life. If I can find my bearings, then I can pivot from wherever I'm at to be able to find effectiveness. And that speed of recovery that, we've shared before is sometimes we don't get to choose how a situation impacts us, but we definitely get to choose what we want to do with it or within it when we understand what Tim just shared. In the darkest moment that I've ever had in my entire life, I still had choice because I could identify the separate pieces and then identify what I could do within that. And just that shred, sometimes those minute things was enough to help me get through the next thing and to build that self-confidence and our confidence in the situation. Shannon, what you're going into with surgery is sometimes the identification of the pieces can give you enough to be able to trust the process without it feeling quite so risky. And how you interplay with that. At least that's been my experience. Sometimes because we don't have the crystal ball, we don't have the magic wand, we can't prove and position things to work out exactly the way that we want them to. We can do high probability. We can own our stuff and make peace with what we've been able to do and the scope of our influence, and then evaluate from that moving forward. And again, it comes back to, I consider self-other situation my compass, that all the other mind models fit into as degrees that I get to use to navigate my life. No matter what I'm hit with, I have a highest probability for success of the outcome that I can find joy and happiness in, because I know how to think, not just what to think about.
Excellent. Very powerful, very true.
Very powerful.
Blair, would you like to participate in the wrap up?
Love to. So, one of the key elements here, I mean, Shannon's going through surgery. I was about 7 weeks ago, I went through my hip surgery. And much longer time, like almost decade and a half, 2 decades ago, went through open heart surgery. Open heart surgery was the biggest struggle that I had because my dad went into a 14-year coma post-surgery. And so there was a lot of stuff in my brain, fear, that I needed to manage and assess. And I want to listen to the surgeon, how they talk, how they organize what they are doing, how they convey, not their bedside manner, but how are they organized in their brain as far as paying attention to the frickin' details, because it's my life on the line in their hands, as it were, not just metaphorically, but figuratively when, you got a guy working on your heart, literally. So, being able to assess, and by the way, I had the choice of two surgeons, the doctor that actually did it and another guy, because the guy that was going to do it, couldn't do it that night. He had another engagement, or he couldn't do it at the time because he had another engagement. So he said, you could use this other person, but if you choose to wait for 2 days, I'll be available. I waited because the other guy was a freaking cowboy. Yeah, he was Chinese, but he was a cowboy, like. So I nothing against cowboys, but I don't want a cowboy doing open heart surgery. Okay, so that's basically it. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. You got it, Shane. Um, but the issue here is, how can I choose? All I can do is assess. My surgeon walked in with a stack of reports, medical stuff, and then he took out a small file that was like, a fraction, maybe 15, 20 pages, but it was a full report of what he was going to do. My current surgeon, Herman, who did my hip, didn't have that, but he's sitting down studying the x-ray that appeared, or he was able to see 2 days earlier, to know exactly where all the anatomical points are to be able to do the surgery correctly. Those are the things that I personally chose on recognizing how people think. And then I go, he's passed all the things that he needs to be where he's at. He's done a lot of these, they both had. So I go, yeah, I can trust, and I can take a risk in this. And I think it's low probability of a screw up. Nothing's perfect. So long as my body has got all the parts in the right places and nothing's moved, I should be good. And I have been so far. So I evaluate the situation very tightly in my own mind. But I do it from self. I evaluate myself. I can control that. I can look into how the other person is operating, like not the operation, but how are they behaving? And then the situation. And are things coming together effectively? And is he willing to communicate effectively?
Mhm.
And if the answer is yes, then it's a go. If the answer is no, it's a no-go.
Mhm.
So that's my view of it. And I use this in so many areas of my life, including earlier today. I was criticizing myself because I wasn't moving fast enough on my own business model and everything else. But this is the first day that I've been leaving my cane behind and walking around my condo occasionally. So that's huge for me, and not limping too badly. So that's huge. Yeah, woohoo is right. Like, yeah, it's a big move for me. Anyway, that's me. This has been like 99992. I didn't go as many nines as you did, Becky. I'll let you beat me on that one, but whatever. Anyway, it's almost a 10. So,
Yeah.
and next week I'm going to try and make sure I have more visual aids.
Yes. The next week lends itself well to a visual aid.
It
So
does.
we'll have to figure that out. Anyway, well, for me, 9.7, great value. Blair, your diagrams and the possibilities of, with the circles getting bigger and small and the different overlaps and the different order of them. I can watch my life play out in those circles. I can watch, the different situations, because even though we always have ourself, the situations and the others flux. And so every time they change, we have a new other situation to navigate. And there's so much value, so much practical value in this. So at this point, we are doing Risk Trust Honesty next week, guys. So I encourage you to come back and join us. Tim, would you like to take us out?
Before you say that,
Oh,
just remember that, like today, I was beating myself up a lot. So I was shrinking myself circle down, 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 down a whole lot. And it got frighteningly small. And then I kicked myself in the ass. And I realized what I've been going through, and to be like, again, back into balanced, fair self-evaluation, not just beat the crap out of yourself because you can.
yeah. That what you're going through, everything that you have navigated, where you are is a very reasonable place. And I know how diligent you are being with everything in your world right now. So very intentional, very diligent. So well done on having the progress to leave the cane behind periodically. That's exciting.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Well said, and great reminder, Blair. Thank you. And thank you, Patty. I would love to take us out. Thanks, everybody, for spending the last 90 minutes with us, or just a little bit over at this point. We're so thankful for all the comments. And I say we because I am sitting, we get into the we. I'm thankful, and so are we, for everybody's involvement, everybody's conversation tonight, and what you brought to it. If you're on YouTube, we'd actually love to hear your biggest takeaway. How you experienced tonight on a number from 1 to 10, and what was your biggest takeaway? What did you learn tonight? What did you get from it? If you'd like to leave that in the comments, we'd love to hear. And also, if you got value out of tonight, hit that like button and subscribe. We are here every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we enjoy all the interaction on YouTube. If you want to be live, go to blairdunkley.com. He's got the link there, and you can actually come be live with us if you'd like to. With that, I also wanted to just mention Blair does have those insider notes. It's a great opportunity to go deeper into this mind model, to get some of the things that we haven't talked about tonight. And I wanted to mention he did put that bonus in there tonight. And it's things like this that Blair constantly is putting in those insider notes. Such great value there. Again, you can get those from, episode 318 on to tonight's episode, which is 354. It's $25 a month, $300 a year. So worth it to get those insider notes. And again, you can get those at www.blairdunkley.com /BDE-insider-notes. And don't forget that we also have My Model Coach coming up. So if you'd like to be a part of that, again, reach out to Blair at the Blair Rewiring the Mind. Sorry, grabbing the link. There it is, Blair at rewiringthemind.com. And you can come and be a part of the My Model Coach. We're so grateful again for all of you being here. Thanks so much. And we will see you next Tuesday where we talk about risk, trust, honesty. It's going to be great. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys. Take care.